Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, and today we're going to talk about something that all parents I know are going to really like because it has to do with education and learning for your kids so they can succeed, so they can do well and get a skill, get a vocation, get a profession, so that you know when you have your grandkids that you've helped to establish that. So today, engineer, if you can put the pictures of our guest up on the screen, we're very honored to have Mrs. Annette Primiani. Annette Primiani is director of the Learning Connection Incorporated, an educational consultant workshop that she runs, and she's the leader. She's a teacher trainer. She's a school network liaison, a parent-teacher liaison with a Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education from St. John's University, a Master's of Science in Educational Administration from Bank City College. She's a humanitarian and was workshop leader for the World Literacy Crusade and educational consultant for Majestic Cruise Lines of Curacao. While at Hollywood, she was education consultant and studio teacher for 20th Century Fox and a professor at Cal State, LA. Annette is an English as second language specialist and was bilingual coordinator for 900 students and over 60 staff. My apologies. She also is a skilled trainer on federal and state requirements for bilingual education. Earlier in her distinguished career, she was with the New York City Board of Ed and with PS 20, the Bronx, IS 55 in Brownsville, Brooklyn, CS 129, the Bronx, an Urban Coalition School Community Project Director. Mrs. Primiani has presented workshops on innovations in study success, giving such talks as the Barriers to Study Workshop, How to Help Your Child at Home, Desegregation Training, The Bilingual Teacher, All You Need to Know, How You Can Help Your Child, The Common Sense Approach to English as a Second Language, Words and Color Techniques for Teachers, Remedial Reading with Script Writing and Puppetry. All I can say is, wow. It's quite amazing because really I cut out so much. It goes on and on and on, and we're very honored to have on our show an engineer. If you can bring her up on the screen, I want to welcome Annette Primiani to A Time for Truth show. Hello, Annette. How are you doing?
Great. How about yourself?
Well, I'm blown away by your biography, my Lord.
It's been quite a road.
I can see that. And, I wanted to first ask you, for our viewers, what was it that stimulated you to take up a career in teaching and education?
Well, honestly speaking, to be a fashion.
We're having problems with the internet connection. And so, engineer, I think at this point, if you can hear me and follow my directions, I'm going to take over and just talk to the viewers, and we're going to have Annette the next time, because the connection, unfortunately, is too low, and it's really a shame, because there's so much I know that Annette has to say, and we'll have to have her on another show. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue now, and I'm going to explain some of what Annette had explained to me about these barriers to study. And the barriers to study is something that was discovered. And it discovered through trying to teach others what was holding them back. I don't know if you've ever had the experience of reading something, getting to the bottom of the page, or getting halfway there, and you have absolutely no idea what you've just read. I can see that probably many of you had had that experience. Or you start reading something, and the next thing you know, it's the next morning, and you fell asleep. It's a great way to fall asleep, but you have to wonder, what was it that you were reading that put you to sleep? Because obviously, that's not what we want. Education shouldn't put us to sleep. It should actually wake us up. It should stimulate us. It should give us information that allows us to actually go forward in our skill, with our profession, with our sport, with whatever it is that you're practicing. There's a competence we want to have, and that competence comes from an understanding of that technology, of that skill, of that sport, of that profession. And each one of those has a whole set of what's called terminology, of the words, of the things that go together that form the basis and the theory of what we're going to be practicing. And so if we have confusions and misunderstandings on those words, then obviously we're going to have confusions on applying them and being able to institute them in our daily course of life, in our sport, and when practicing our skill. That's something that I, as a periodontal and dental implant surgeon, came across in my training at dental school. With my classmates, we had a lot of basic sciences, but some of them, unfortunately, were given at such a rapid rate that the amount of words that just totally mystified us was astounding. And I remember speaking to my buddies in school back then, Jeff and Jay, and we got out of a class on what's called histology. I don't want to give you another misunderstood concept or word, so what's histology? Histology comes from logos, the Latin study of, histo, the cells of the body, what make up our organs, our heart, our lungs. All of these different cells are studied in the field of histology. And obviously, as a doctor, we had to learn this. But what would happen, we really didn't, because we did well on our tests, but did we learn? No, we memorized. And probably, if you think back to some of your schooling, the best education that you had was there was a balance of theory and application, like you had in arts and crafts, like you had in woodshop, like you actually had in the practice of dentistry, because when we learned in our dental profession, part was the theory and part was the actual practice. When we worked in the mouth, we worked on the teeth, we worked on the gums surrounding the teeth. And so what happened is we were able to apply the concepts that were in words to the actual physical objects that were in the mouth, and we realized, oh, that's what he was trying to get across in histology when he was talking about the red blood cell, and it carries oxygen, and it has hemoglobin, and this is good for the gum tissue. So when you try to avoid gum disease, you want to oxygenate and have good circulation. Why? Because the immune system helps to fight the bacteria, the enemy that is in our mouths. And so that was the whole purpose of the histology. But unfortunately, because this study technology wasn't applied, we got lost. We got B's, we got A's, and we passed through the course, But did we get an understanding? Not really. I have to confess, not really. It was really later on, as I did more and more as a doctor and become more and more well-versed, that the concepts became more common sense to me, more basic, more understandable. But if you take it for the lay person, you know, the same thing can happen to them. So you could be studying about plumbing, and they assume that you already know a lot of terminology, and you get in the middle of a plumbing project and you have no idea what to do when you have a leak and there's water in your bathroom. It's a disaster. Why did that happen? Because you didn't have a good grounding. You didn't have a good basis to go in and do that plumbing. So that's one of the most important barriers, which is called, in the barriers to study, the misunderstood word.
Consider this. In all of the endless hours of your schooling, you were given plenty to learn. But did anyone ever actually teach you how to study? Sure, you learned how to go to school, and maybe even what questions were going to be on the test. But were you ever taught how to learn? A lack of any real method of study has, over the years, led to many students studying just so they can pass the tests. Or trick methods of memorizing so they can repeat back the right answer when they're asked.
Abraham Lincoln.
And now and then, other more unconventional methods. But all of this is a substitute for actual understanding. You don't gain any real knowledge you can use. But study and learning are a vital part of everyday life, not just in terms of succeeding in your schooling, but in an ever more competitive world. Many people wish to advance their knowledge on the job. Or perhaps you've had a lifelong passion that you've always wanted to pursue. And as the years have passed, you've come to convince yourself that the subject is just too difficult. But the dream has never quite left you. And many people find themselves years after their actual schooling, needing to further their education so as to improve their situation in life. For any number of reasons, it's easy to see why it would be very useful to have an effective system of study. Scientology offers a precise study technology that enables anyone to learn and fully understand any subject. It's the first thoroughly workable approach to teaching people exactly how to learn. For example, one of the first steps of studying anything is knowing why you're studying. Instead of looking at data and thinking, is this going to be on the exam? Ask yourself this: how can I apply this material? How can I really use this? If you do that, you'll find you get much more out of what you're studying and be able to put what you're learning to actual use. Of course, you can't study a subject if you think you know all about it to begin with. Having a willingness to know includes deciding that there's something there to learn. In Scientology, it's been discovered that there are 3 distinct barriers which can block your ability to study, and therefore to learn. Each barrier actually produces a different set of reactions in you. If you can recognize these reactions, you can use specific tools to overcome them. If you've ever found yourself feeling bored or exasperated when studying something, or ever felt squashed, dizzy, headachy, or had that dead sort of feeling when trying to understand something, these are the reactions of the first barrier to study: the absence of mass. By mass, we mean the actual objects, the physical things of life. For example, if you were studying about flying from a textbook and read all about how to operate the controls, how much would you understand if you'd never actually seen an airplane cockpit itself? Seeing or touching the thing you're studying, getting the physical reality of the ideas you're trying to learn about would help remedy this.
And one of the most important things that you want to push.
With study technology, you'll learn several useful tools developed specifically to give you the mass you need to make the thing you're studying real to you. If you've ever tried to learn something and found yourself reeling or confused, or feeling like the newest step you're asked to do is just too hard,
Come on, let's go.
this is actually because a previous step wasn't understood and you jumped to the next step. This second barrier to study is called too steep a gradient. Gradient means the gradual step-by-step approach to something. With these study tools, you'll know exactly how to find which earlier step it was that you missed or never quite mastered, and how to handle it. If you tackle what you're trying to learn so that each step is easily attainable, even the most complicated things can be achieved. Now, have you ever gotten to the end of a page and realized you have no idea what you just read? Or have you ever put down a book in the middle of it, never to pick it up again? Well, believe it or not, both of those scenarios are caused by the very same thing, and it's the most important barrier of them all, the misunderstood word. A misunderstood word is a word which is not understood at all, or it's a word you think you understand, but you have wrong. Going past a misunderstood word gives you a distinctly blank feeling. And if you've ever seen someone getting groggy or falling asleep over his book, then you know they've passed a misunderstood word long before. This also explains why you can get to the bottom of a page and not know what you just read. Somewhere earlier on that page, there was a word you misunderstood. When this occurs, the section right after that word is a blank in your memory. This causes you to separate yourself from it and withdraw. Any class you've dropped or subject you've ever given up on has had its misunderstood words. With study technology, you'll learn how to find those words and clear up their meaning. And you'll not only feel brighter, you'll regain your ability and interest in the subject. As simple as these tools seem at first glance, they represent extensive research into the subject of study and the way our minds work. In truth, being a bright student doesn't depend on native talent. No matter how young or old, or how impossible the challenge may at first seem. With these tools, anyone can learn any subject they choose and use those skills to succeed.
Continue. So this misunderstood word is something that prevents you from having competence, and it prevents you from having an understanding. And when you have that, you may feel that maybe you have not much ability in that subject. That's not true. You may feel, well, you know what? I don't have a lot of intelligence, My brother did, but it looks like I got shortchanged on my genes. No, it's not in your genes. It's not that you have a set intelligence. No, you actually can learn, but what's happened, no one ever went over with you about clearing up your words, looking in a dictionary, or looking on your phone in your phone dictionary, and clearing up the words so that you had a good understanding of what they meant and the derivation, where they came from. And this technology was developed by Mr. Ron Hubbard. Mr. Hubbard was a humanitarian who was trying to get across concepts of conditions in life, how to improve them, of how to improve emotions and stresses that we had, how to be more calm, how to be happier, and have a more pleasing, satisfying life. But when he tried to teach that, Mr. Hubbard found that he didn't get those concepts across totally. That sometimes, even though he tried, he saw there was a barrier. And he realized that that barrier was a misunderstood word, which he found to be a very important subject. And this is what we're talking about today. Annette was going to speak to you, and I know we'll have her back on the show, because she's done a tremendous amount with kids that others had given up upon. And, we'll have to I get a little comedy into the show here. We'll have to figure out what happened with the internet today, because somewhere in the internet there was a misunderstood concept. the internet didn't function the way it should have. So we will get that cleared up and use what we know so that we will have that show next time. And Annette will go over with you a lot of the successes that she was relaying to me that she had with kids that others had given up upon. And it's amazing that what she did is she applied this barrier to study, this misunderstood concept or word or symbol, in when she was teaching the kids. And, she explained to me how, and there's a picture of her, you can see her up on the screen with this little girl. And, sometimes if you've ever taught kids, you realize that you have to go at their speed. Here she is. And here's Annette using, and leave that up on the screen, engineer. Put that back, put the back that you had back on. That was really good if you can put that back on. And the picture that you had, Victor, was fantastic if you can put it back on. And that picture is showing Annette going over that concept with that little girl. And here she is with another person. And what she does is when she goes over the concept with these kids, she also goes over what that looks like. Here she was getting an award. And the reason of the importance of what it looks like is because just to have words without having the actual tactile or the visual of what something is can get you totally lost. So I'll give you an example of something that we can go over now. And I could tell you, when the crepuscule comes, make sure all the kids are inside. And you could say to me, in the crepuscule, I'm not a pharmacist. Or you could say the crepuscule, what is that? But you have absolutely no idea of what you need to do because you have no idea what the crepuscule means. Now, if we looked in the dictionary and you saw the crepuscule means twilight, that time of the day when the sun goes down, it starts getting dark outside. Now we translate very simply because we have an understanding of that word and we know, when it becomes twilight, when the sun goes down, I should bring all the kids into the building so that they're safe. Exactly. There you have an example, and that's actually Mr. Hubbard's example that he has in his books. And one of the things that he puts in front of all of his books is he says important note. Why is it an important note? Because you could get a fantastic book that could change your life, but if there was no understanding, you would get nothing out of that book. I don't know if you found this, but I have books that I threw away. Why? More than likely because I went in with all this hope, but then I encountered all these words. The words in those books were not defined. I didn't look them up either. I was guilty myself, as the author was, and I didn't get anything out of it. So this is why in his books, Mr. Hubbard loves to put that at the beginning of the book. Important note. Please be sure you don't pass by a word that you do not understand, because the only reason a person gives up a study or feels incompetent or doesn't continue or totally leaves from an area is because they have some kind of misunderstood word or concept. So from today's show, we can learn something. We can learn that from now on, if you get confused, if you start getting drowsy, sleepy, or you wake up the next morning when you had a book in your hands the night before, now you know that you can look up those words. If you'd like to have more on this study technology, you can go on a link, which is the volunteer minister. It's called ScientologyVolunteerMinister.org. And on that link, there's a free course that you can do on study. I would encourage you to do it because that will change your life. And if you're suffering, you want to improve what you're getting paid each week, educate yourself. If you want to be, a better position, if you want to get a raise, if you want to get to a directorship, Clear up your words. Learn more about your subject. Learn what you didn't know before. And be willing to look. Be willing to realize that we don't always know everything. We can't expect to know everything. Everything is not just automatically given to us. It takes a little work. It takes a little clearing up. But with that, your life can improve. You have a better understanding. And with more understanding and more comprehension, you'll feel better. You get along better in your life, with your spouse, with your children, with yourself, and have pride that you realize, you know what? I'm a pretty smart person. I can make it happen. So I hope you've enjoyed the show today. It's been a pleasure to have you. We will have Annette Primiani on. We'll fix the internet problem. And for those of you watching, may you enjoy your study course on the ScientologyVolunteerMinister.org website. Take the free course, change your life, and from Time for Truth show, may you have a great week. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again next time.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got. But the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet